Have I joined? Oh no, have I joined filming in the Zoom so we can share the screen? I think we have Zoom. Okay. So let's see if I can put
the microphone here. You're going to be. Does it catch you enough? I can move it. So where you're going to.
No, almost. I need this because this is my cheat notes. There we go. So, lovely to be able to share. So I wanted to talk about God being here. Fancy word is omnipresent. Omni means all. So if this was an omnidirectional microphone, it would pick up the sound from all directions. It's probably a unidirectional mic to pick up sounds in front of it. But God is omnipresent because God is everywhere. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to challenge some of the religious views that we may have picked up about God being not in every place. So God is here and God is there. And Justina was telling me I think it was last week, about the word manifest presence. So God's presence can be more in one place than it is in another, or we can be aware of God's presence, say when we feel the Holy Spirit, or when something is happening, when someone's being healed. There's times when we say, well, definitely this God is manifesting his presence. But what I'm interested in today is more about God's presence being everywhere. And maybe we can appreciate God being everywhere, even if it's not so obvious. Or maybe we can open ourselves up to being more aware of God's presence. So omni is all. So is it biblical that God is everywhere? There's a psalm that says, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise up on the wings of dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. So there's nowhere I can go to get away from God. But that's a good thing, because we have a loving, caring, nurturing, safe God. So it's good that wherever I go, God is. So maybe you've heard the verse from the Gospel of Matthew that says, where 2 or 3 have gathered together in my name, I am there in their midst. That was Jesus who said that. So one place that God is wherever we are. Maybe it's easier to realize that God is for other people who know about God. I don't think this means that God isn't there when 1 or 2 aren't gathered, or if 1 or 2 of us gather to have lunch today and we don't say, stop everyone, this is in Jesus' name, God's still there. So we don't have to, this is true, but this isn't the only thing that's true. God is with us when we gather. And then in Colossians 1, it says, to them God has chosen to make known among the Gentiles the glorious riches of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. So Christ isn't just in those rooms when we meet together, and God isn't just in the depths or in the lows, in the highs of the mountains and the valleys. God is in us. That's pretty weird. How does that work? How could God be in me physically? Well, this is where the spirit, we use the word spirit. And for me, I've got a really easy way of understanding spiritual things. And those are anything that I can't understand, those are spiritual. So I can't understand a lot of things. So I just put them in a bucket of spiritual. How can God be in me? I don't know, but he is, and he can. And it's not just a random being that's in me, it's hope, and it's hope of glory, like radiance, beauty, purpose, meaning. There's all sorts of great things that having Christ in us means. So where is Christ? Is Christ in the physical, or is Christ in the spiritual realm that we can't quite understand, that we can't rationalize with our logical minds, that we maybe don't understand? Well, in Luke 9, Jesus took Peter, John, and James up, and he went up to a mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his face was altered, and his clothing became white and dazzling. So something happened when Jesus took some of his friends up to pray that is supernatural, that we don't understand how it happened physically, that he started to look differently, and him and his clothing and his face glowed. Like, what's that? How does that work physically? Don't know, so it must be spiritual. But this is a picture of Jesus being both physical and spiritual. God is present in the physical. Jesus became man. Jesus came to earth and was fully human, not 50% human, 100% human. And Jesus was 100% God. So this is a little picture of the two crossing over. The spiritual became evident in the physical. And how physical could Jesus be? How interested was Jesus in the practical, the physical, the embodied? Well, Jesus says, I eat my food and drink my wine. And you say, what a glutton Jesus is. He eats, he drinks, he has the lowest sorts of friends. So Jesus was known to be someone who ate, who drank, and he hung out with people who weren't the best of people, who weren't doing things correctly, who weren't the great example of how people should live. But Jesus was interested in and willing to be known for eating, which is physical, drinking, which is physical, and hanging out with people who haven't got their lives sorted out yet. That's the Jesus that I want to be like. That's the Jesus I want to follow. Is that someone who is willing to enjoy life, enjoy that the bread that we ate today? Not only does it symbolize Jesus's body broken for us, but it symbolizes that Jesus came to earth, became human, and got physical. There's a physicality to Jesus. But I love that he was criticized not only for eating and for drinking alcohol, but for having the lowest sorts of friends. That's brilliant. So we're about to do a little exercise around the table where you guys are going to have a chance to think, to talk, to share, basically to teach each other. So first of all, a bit of fun. Who do you think this picture is on the top right? Anybody know who the picture is? Pardon? Zacchaeus. No, oh yeah. That's really good. That's exactly this is what some experts, some archaeologists, and some academics analyzed the bone structure of people around the place where Jesus was, around the time where Jesus was, other bones, other skulls that they found, and they looked and they came up with a composite of what they thought Jesus would have probably looked like. And I really like that because I don't want to put a picture of Jesus as this American with long flowing hair. Yeah, blue-eyed. Because if Jesus was born in Galilee, if he grew up in Nazareth, he probably looked more like this. And I really like that. But that's just a random one-off. God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. So what I want to challenge you with or suggest to you is all the people who we know, all the people who you see at your job, at your studies, your neighbors, all the people that you see that aren't believers were made in God's image. And I sometimes, when I became a Christian, I was so excited to be a part of this fantastic tribe of people who knew our purpose in life, who we knew what we were here for, and we knew that we were loved, or at least I was starting to learn that I was loved. I got a bit zealous, and I kind of looked down my nose at the people who didn't understand Christianity, who didn't follow God. And I was a little bit judgmental, or maybe a lot judgmental of people who didn't believe. But one of the things that God's been teaching me is like, God wouldn't be like that. If my neighbor is getting up on a Sunday and going for a walk and not coming to church, my neighbor, God wouldn't be like, they should really go to church. That's me. That's what I would think. But they wouldn't think, God wouldn't think like that. So God is not judgmental, and God is not harsh. God is gracious and kind. So these are some people who I wanted to tell you a little bit about, who are made in God's image. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of these people have been addicted to heroin. All of these people are wonderful, beautiful people. The people who I know through my work, they have really devoted to helping people. They're really devoted to making something important out of their lives. They're really patient, and they are really gracious. They work with people who can be really difficult to work with, who can be really be pushy. People who are in the throes of alcohol or other drug addictions aren't necessarily very easy to be with. But these folks are great. They're an example to me about how we can be patient and we can be gracious. And they're not Christians. They're not even Christians. One of these people is my boss at work. And my boss believes in me and trusts me, sometimes when I don't believe in myself. And in the 5 years that I've worked in this job, my boss has made a huge difference in my own self-image and my own spiritual growth. But wait a minute, she's not a Christian. She's made in God's image, and God is everywhere. This is my point I want to suggest to you. If God is everywhere, then isn't God in my boss, who isn't a believer? If God is everywhere, then isn't God in these 4 people who used to be addicted to heroin? There's one of these people is an amazing networker and really does get things done and can make things happen. And the stuff that he makes happen and gets done is helping his community and helping the homeless in his area. And he's brilliant. I don't know how he does it, but he really does get things done. He's awesome. I wish we could clone him and like have more of him around Cambridgeshire, because he's one of a kind. One of these folks is an artist, and she has a beautiful way of seeing life and seeing life and experiencing life. And she has a great way of expressing things. She's beautiful, really amazing inside. And then one of these people was my father-in-law. He's not with us anymore, but he was Lucy's dad, and I met him twice. And this man was so loving and so patient and so kind that the very second time I met him, he started asking me questions about myself. And I found myself like telling him my life story, telling him what I wanted to do with my life, telling him my dreams, which I usually wouldn't be confident enough to tell anybody. I wouldn't even necessarily be confident to say it myself. But he was so wonderful, so beautiful. And I'm not the only one who's experienced him that way. He was an amazing man. And I was fortunate enough to be able to pray for him before he died. But he wasn't a believer. But he was definitely made in God's image, and he definitely carried something of God in him. So it's not just when we pray a prayer. It's not just when something happens in us and our spirit comes alive that God dwells in us. God is everywhere. And a lot of the people, so the people I had not put a photo up are the people who I work with and who are my friends in my own recovery community. Now, actually, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there and do the activities at the table. What time do we finish, Tony? Something like another 5 minutes, and then that gives us a bit of time just to share those tables. Okay. So what I would like you to do is just to chat. We've got some really cool color pens at the table. If you like some color pens, your table. Go to the table and steal some of the best colors. You can write something down, you can draw something, you can talk about how you see God in people who don't yet know Him. Talk about how you see God's characteristics in people who aren't believers. Talk about if you can think of times, if you think of qualities that you've seen in people. Tell each other stories of how you've seen inspiring qualities in people who don't yet know Jesus. God is everywhere, so there must be some godly qualities in some people who even don't yet know Jesus. Okay, you want to just wind it up? We're going to come back together in just a minute. Okay, thank you, folks. Can we bring it back together then? So another thing when I was a new Christian is I was really open and really hungry and I really wanted to learn. And one of the books that really impacted me was a book called Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. That book is one of the kind of main things that led me to follow Jesus. Another book that I came across is this one here. And when I saw this, I was both intrigued and a little bit worried. I was a bit conflicted. Zen, that doesn't seem very Christian. That's not Christian at all. But motorcycle maintenance and putting the two together, philosophy or spirituality and maintaining a motorcycle, that's really cool. Two vastly different things being brought together. So I was actually a bit troubled about this book when I first came across it, but I did read it anyway. I probably didn't tell anybody in church that I read it. But this book inspired me and it moved me in a way that I felt was God, even if it was talking about some Buddhist philosophy and some non-Christian worldviews. Mostly what moved me was the poetry and the logic of this guy who was on a road trip. And he was talking about how you need to maintain your motorcycle. You need to repair it. You need to work on it. You need to tweak it. If you don't tweak it, it's going to go wrong. And he was making an analogy between looking after your motorcycle and looking after yourself. Looking after your motorcycle, at one point, the higher elevation where they were caused the engine to be running not so well. And he installed some new jets in the engine and he adjusted the valves. And he made a comparison between in life, we sometimes need to reflect and we need to adjust and we need to repair. We can't just ignore ourselves or our relationships. So I was really moved by this book. And it was the creativity and the artistry, as well as the interesting intellect, that I just knew that God was speaking to me through this heathen, satanic, ungodly book or idea. So no, seriously, I don't think that this is anti-God. I think that God spoke to me through this, even though it wasn't Christian. And who God could speak through anything. God could speak to anyone. And I suppose for a donkey, so yeah. There you go. The Old Testament, definitely. So I'll just wrap it up by saying that another place that God is in pain. God is in the middle of our tears. God can be found right in the midst of our agony and our sadness. Even in our doubt, God can be found even in our doubt. God is everywhere. So if God is everywhere, then God is even in the middle of our pain. And the Samaritans are a brilliant charity where they say lots and lots of charities are there to help people find where they can get the best help or offer people help in certain ways, in certain elements of care. But the Samaritans are the charity that says we're not there to fix anyone or to point anyone to where they can get help. We're there to listen to people and to care for them And if someone is down in a pit, instead of trying to help them get out of the pit, we just climb down into the pit with them, and we're with them in their despair. And I think that's a very godly vision for this organization to have, even though they're not Christian. That's definitely in God's heart. So the last place I want to suggest that God is in our pain and in our suffering and our heartbreak and even our doubt. So that's all I have for today. And please continue to talk about this stuff. Maybe you don't agree with everything I've said. That's absolutely fine. But I wanted to just drop some ideas in and encourage us that the God who's everywhere is love. It's a loving God who's everywhere, not a judgmental God, not a God who's looking to catch us out. It's a loving, caring, nurturing, everlasting, loving God who's with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. So yeah, do continue your conversations, pray for one another. Something might come up, something along the lines of pain or tears or grief or whatever may be bubbling up. Share it and let someone hold you in that discomfort. And the hatch is open, so you could by all means pray and chat with a cup of tea, and we'll probably start packing up around 12. God bless you. Hope to see you again next week.